Hello and welcome to the Kamala Show, where we bring you interviews and conversations with technologists, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, and other news from in and around the San Francisco Bay Area. There's a trend out there in San Francisco and the Bay Area. It's a food trend. A lot of investors are pumping in money into food companies, Phil's Coffee, Blue Bottle, and the latest is Tava Indian Kitchen. And we have with us Hasnain Zaidi, who is a co-founder and the chief operating officer. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here.
Okay, so you're part of this new trend.
I am, yeah. I'd like to think that we're right in the mix of things. You know, we moved out to the Bay Area, me and my co-founders, a few years ago. And while everyone sort of had their own tech houses in Menlo Park and they were coding, we were sitting in that house in Menlo Park and cooking.
Oh, you watch Silicon Valley?
We do, yeah. So it was a little too close to home on that one. You just take all of the coding and you put recipes, and that's what we were doing. And so we had dinner parties every night, and so we've been working on it for a while.
So are you Dinesh?
We're just going to stay away from all of those. Those guys are all interesting folks.
Or are you Guilfoyle?
You know what? Whichever one is making it tick, we'll be there.
Oh, so you're Richard.
A little less awkward, hopefully. But
okay, so you got 4.5 million.
We did, yeah. We were tremendously fortunate. We've got a great group of investors that loved the concept. They saw what we'd built in the last 3 years. We built 3 restaurants and, frankly, a pretty passionate fan base. And they saw in that, I think, the kernel for something greater. And so we got $4.5 million to go out and grow the business. And
what was your elevator pitch?
The elevator pitch was that food is too often boring. And really, food needs to be flavorful because our lives need to be flavorful. And I think that really hooked people, was this idea of living a flavorful life. And so for us, it's this idea of a restaurant brand that provides flavorful food, but then also values-based food, you know, where you feel really good about eating there. Because ultimately, where you choose to eat is, frankly, a reflection of who you are.
So it was founded by 3 of you.
3 guys, yeah.
Your other 2 founders were actually apparently met by accident on a plane, and they started talking.
Yes, we had a very serendipitous story. I mean, our friendship goes back a long time. We've been friends 10 years, or sort of college buddies. And
at Duke.
At Duke, exactly right. So we've got proud basketball traditions, and so
you know, the sports gene is missing in me, so I would have no clue.
Okay, well, it's probably better. You're too busy, because in March we sort of all shut down. We're just watching basketball the whole time. But the 3 of us are college friends, and we sort of followed each other into the world of finance, and then. You know, there came a point where we were just feeling restless.
You worked at Bain.
We did. We were at Bain and Company.
Which is a private equity firm.
Private equity and then consulting, exactly.
What did you do there?
So I was a senior associate consultant. I did financial services, semiconductor manufacturing, healthcare, just all sorts of little industries, and we helped companies get better and sort of drive valuation for them. But
drive valuation for them.
For them, exactly right. That was the operative word, right? And so sort of 3 years in, you get, you know, you're seeing other people play the game. And it's really fun and it's interesting to see that, but eventually there's that itch of, I want to be there. I want to be the guy that is doing the stuff.
So you learned the grammar of the game.
That's a great way to put it. We learned the grammar of the game, and now we're writing the poetry of the game ourselves.
Oh, okay. Flavorful poetry.
Flavorful poetry. I mean, and it really is. I mean, food has those same elements of poetry, right? Where you're putting things together in a beautiful way, and it appeals to the senses. And if you do it right, it appeals to the heart. So I think poetry is a really good analog for what we're doing.
So let's switch back. So you're 3 guys.
3 guys, sort of at the point where the next step in the rat race was business school, right? And then you continue to become a VP or a partner, and that to us was terrifying.
Did you go to business school?
I didn't. And so that was the put up or shut up moment where, you know, there was this opportunity and we could have applied to the Harvards and the Stanfords of the world, and a lot of our friends did. But for us, the chance to go build something was really exciting. And so this mythical flight that you're talking about is a Delta flight from Atlanta to Denver. And
it's not a mythical flight.
Well, I mean, it will be the thing of lore. It's a real flight.
And the Phoenix was born.
Exactly right. No ashes, thankfully. And so Jason and Vijay were on this flight together and didn't realize that they were both going to be in the same place at the same time. And we're sort of generally just talking about how they were ready to do something different. And this idea of like, you know, like, why don't we have really good, flavorful South Asian food available the way sort of Chinese or Vietnamese or Thai food is? And so that seed was planted.
You didn't mention
Chipotle. I didn't mention Chipotle. Chipotle is fantastic.
Because you guys often said, you know, where Indian food meets Chipotle.
It truly is, and you know, we're thrilled to even be mentioned in the same breath as those guys. They've done so much for, I mean, you talked about sort of this trend of investors, but really it's a trend as a culture where we've begun to value food in a different way. That relationship has changed, and Chipotle has been a big part of that.
Yes.
And so sort of all of these new restaurant entrepreneurs are a little bit in their debt because we continue, you know, the way we like to think about it is sort of picking up the torch that they led with and continuing to push forward with this idea of, you know, values-based food, about being a company that really cares about where the food is coming from, but then also how you treat your employees, how you treat your environment, how you treat your customer base. And that's the kind of thing that Chipotle started, so we're very much in that mold. And so interestingly enough, you know, we left our corporate gigs, came out to the Bay Area, we're cooking, and of course...
Why the Bay Area?
Oh my gosh.
Why not New York?
I mean, I adore San Francisco.
You adore, but I'm just wondering, from Atlanta, you three guys, why do you want to come to San Francisco? It's a tech hub, it's not a food hub.
It's a hub for innovation, is what it is, right? Trying out something different. People here get it.
And you said you didn't go to business school?
Didn't go to business school, exactly right.
What did you major in?
I studied public policy. I wanted to do emergency medicine. So growing up, I was sort of living the good Pakistani kid dream of becoming a doctor. I told my parents that, shipped off to undergrad. And
from Abu Dhabi?
From Abu Dhabi, exactly right. And really spent time on the ground in Karachi doing ambulance work. And you know, my third year of college, just decided that I felt like I could do more if I entered the world of business. And that was sort of the life-altering moment that sort of has culminated in this journey and where we are today.
So I keep interrupting you.
I was just going to tell you about the fact that, you know, we moved out to Menlo Park, and all three of us are white-collar kids. You know, we've grown up with internships and research jobs, you know, the kinds of stuff that would look good on a resume for college. And we're faced with this.
You moved out to Menlo Park?
We did. Little house right on 14th Avenue. Really nice place.
Oh.
I mean, like right in the heart of Menlo Park.
You know, there's a Fifth Avenue when you go down El Camino, Menlo Park.
Exactly right. The different kind of Fifth Avenue. And so you know, we moved out here, and we'd never had a semblance of a restaurant job. You know, I'd never French fried anything in McDonald's or waited tables or anything like that. And so we had, you know, this grand vision of building a restaurant without actually knowing what it felt like to be working in a restaurant. And so all three of us walked into a Chipotle, applied, and we got hired. And
all three of you?
Different Chipotles, but we all just needed that real world experience and what place to go, but the very best.
So which Chipotle did you work in?
I'd rather not say.
Okay.
I was in the Bay Area, but...
Okay, and what did you learn from there?
I learned how hard that work is. I mean, you know, sometimes on this side of the glass, on the customer side of the glass, you forget how hard those people are working to make you happy and to make your food taste the way it should. And, you know, the folks at Chipotle have this phenomenal work ethic. They've done really well as a company because their people have put a lot of sweat and effort into that. We also learned just a lot about who we wanted to be and the concept that we wanted to create. Some things about, you know, theirs that we liked, and some things that we wanted to innovate on and do in our own way.
Well, what is that? What is it that you wanted to be, and what is it that you wanted to innovate?
So we wanted to be a values-based company. Chipotle has this idea of food with integrity, and for us, it's more than just the food. It has to be, you know, how do you treat your employees? How do you take care of the environment, right? Food with integrity in the Bay Area matters. This idea of sustainably
Sounds
raised
like you're
food.
going the B Corp route.
Gosh, those guys are doing fantastic stuff, and their transparency, sort of their whole emphasis on an interdependent society, really resonates with us. It's a pretty lofty standard, so whether we get that certification, that mark or not, certainly those values are very aligned with what we want to be.
So values is one.
Values is one.
And innovation?
And then innovation. A lot of... Especially with ethnic foods, a lot of stuff is kind of thrown together. You know, it's a mom and pop and it'll have a great dish, but everything else around it is sort of haphazard. You know, there's not a lot of thought put into the other elements. And for us, we said, you know, how do we push the envelope on all of this? How do you use design thinking and sort of like lean startup methodology, all these things that our friends in the tech community were using, how do you use that to create a better food experience? You know, all the way from... It does. It completely makes a difference.
Design and lean thinking in food, it helps?
It does. It you know...
In what way?
In most importantly, it changes the customer experience, right? Because that's when you put the customer first and you begin to think about what that journey looks like, you begin to engineer the product differently. You think about that concept in a new way when you're thinking about who the user is and what they want out of it. Right? At the end of the day, why is someone taking time out of their day to come to your restaurant as opposed to somebody else's? And you can create just a much crisper experience. You know, you and I both know that food, we not only eat it with our eyes and our nose and our mouth, but there's sort of that whole experience around it because food is so intimately tied to memories. You remember how that person treated you, how that concept felt, what that vibe and that ambiance was.
Food memories.
Exactly right. I mean, I still, for me, you know, as Coca-Cola is a really simple one, right? I still remember as a kid the delight because we didn't really drink soft drinks growing up, except when we went to Pakistan and India, because the water was sort of always a little questionable there. That was the one time where my parents were like, okay, don't have water, you can have Coke or Pepsi. And so there's this, you know, delightful thing of you're going back to Karachi and everything's on the table. You're like, I will take a Coke and a Sprite and a Fanta, and then, you know, you drink them until you're sick to your stomach for other reasons. But, you know, that was 20 years ago. But the fact that I still remember that shows you the power of food and memories. And so I think if we're not deliberate about how we create those memories, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So that's where the design thinking comes in. And then the lean methodology is really this idea of how do you build a lot on a shoestring? You know, part of the reason I think we got the funding that we did is investors realized, hey, these guys aren't the typical restaurant folks that are just trying to build palaces to whatever. You know, it's much more about, look, like what is going to change the customer experience.
So it's process oriented.
Very much so, you know, and so though we didn't go to business school, I think, you know, we've got that blending of the foodie, but then also the business mindset. And so you've got both the food piece working, but then the dollars and cents have to make sense too. And that's where it comes in.
We have some pictures. I think the first picture we have, I think, is of the three of you.
That is, yeah. That's the first day that we opened in Palo Alto. It's in February of 2012.
So you're in the middle. I'm
in the middle. On my right is Jason, the Caucasian kid, and then on my left is Vijay. He's funny story. Vijay is an Indian kid that grew up in Mississippi. So small town Mississippi, probably the only Indian family around.
No, there are motel owners in Mississippi.
Oh, really? A lot
of Gujarati motel owners.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, his dad's a nuclear physicist, his mom's a doctor, so you can imagine how brilliant this kid is. And so when you put, you know, folks like that in a place, fun things tend to happen. But anyway, so literally probably, you know, 15 minutes before this picture was taken, we're sweeping like dust and debris out the back door of our restaurant because we had our soft launch. But I mean, we were constructing until the last minute. So the night before, we'd had a puja in there, and then we did a prayer in sort of, you know, Muslim style as well, and then we had that opening.
And that's your burroti.
That's the burroti, exactly right. So that's our trademark.
This is not burrito. It's not roti. It's a combination.
It's a combination, exactly right. So we get two funny reactions. People come in and they'll say, "Hey, you misspelled burrito," and we're like, "Actually, no, we didn't. That was deliberate." Or they'll say, "Is that an actual Indian word?" And we have to sort of explain, no, they don't really ever mix roti and rice in India.
They don't?
They don't. It's very anathema, but of course in the Bay Area and in the States, we love our burritos.
And that's your Palo Alto store?
That's the Palo Alto store, exactly.
Town and country, opposite Stanford. And you chose it for a reason.
We did.
Yeah.
We wanted to be just in that hub, right in the mix of things. And so we've got Stanford, we've got Palo Alto, which is such a beautiful community of interesting and adventurous people.
And they would try something like this?
In a heartbeat. And they would love it, and they have.
Okay, and that's your burrito bowl?
That's the burrito bowl, so that's the paneer. So one of our vegetarian options. It is, yep. There's a chai in the background. We do a masala chai.
Why do you call it chai tea?
We don't. We just call it a chai. We call it a hot chai or a cold chai because chai tea is TT, which doesn't make sense. And
that's your logo?
That is our logo.
You know, when I looked at the logo, it reminded me of old Indian logos.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So is that a tiger, lion? What is it?
It's a tiger. So, you know, tiger, national animal of India. And then also we've got this idea of like, you know, we took like a vintage sort of hipster take on an Indian classic, so a new twist on an old classic.
And trademark, you don't see that here that
exactly
much.
Right. I mean, it is very much, it's sort of like a seal of approval, this quality kind of emblem that harkens back very much to an old poster that you would see or on a box of matches in India.
Who came up with that?
We actually worked with some folks, some design guys that are way more brilliant than we are to help put that together.
What does this $4.5 million do for you? What are you going to be doing differently? You have 3 restaurants, one in San Jose.
Right.
Is it in Santana? No, it's in Valley Fair.
It's in Valley Fair, exactly right.
Which is right across from Santana Row. You have one in
San Francisco. We're up in the big city. We're in Soma, right on 2nd and Mission.
Okay, 2nd and Mission. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of crowd there. And then you have one in Palo Alto. What are you going to do with this $4.5 million? Oh
my gosh, so many things.
Like what? Give us a taste.
So I'll give you, I like the pun. So one of the first things that we're doing is we're really putting a lot of thought into the next iteration of our menu. The food is really who we are, and so we've got a bunch of chefs we're working with, including a Michelin star chef who's really helping us put together our next menu.
Is he a South Asian chef?
He is, yeah. So
okay.
we won't talk names,
does he live in San Francisco?
We won't talk names, but he's one of the best in the field, and so he's working on it with us, and so we've got that happening, and that's just really going to push us to the next echelon. I like you. You're persistent. But so the food is going to be, I mean, for a restaurant company that raises money, if the first thing you're not putting it into is your food, your
So are we going to see a change in your food?
You're going to see an evolution of the food, absolutely. So you'll see some of our old stuff and then a whole bunch of really interesting new stuff that really begins to incorporate California more.
In what way?
What we want to do is we want to leverage, I mean, we live in, you know, the oasis or the heaven of produce out here, and so bringing in more cornucopia. I mean, right, bringing in more vegetable-centric dishes, having like these brilliant, beautiful salads and preparations that maybe aren't as authentically Indian, but have that same flavor profile, but served with cauliflower or Brussels sprouts or beets. So you begin to sort of tap into that California food ethic as well, and get to take the flavors of the subcontinent, but bring them out in a new way using sort of a new medium. So the food will be the first piece. The second piece is around our people. We're going to be building out our management team to really bring on people much more smart and experienced than I am. You know, I've learned a lot in 3 years in the restaurant, but having a couple of folks that have got 25 years worth of experience is going to save us a lot of mistakes. You know, I'd much rather learn from their mistakes than make them ourselves. And then, of course, we're going to build restaurants.
Would you be focusing in California, those restaurants in California, West Coast, or are you going out east?
We're probably not going to go all the way out east. We're going to branch further east, and so we're looking
Mississippi?
Mississippi might take us a good 15 or 20 years before they're ready for our version of things, but certainly, you know, looking at places like Colorado, like Washington State, like Oregon, so sort of Western United States, bigger cities.
So have you done your research, your basic market? So that's what you have found out, that
exactly
these
right.
people, the folks in these areas may be...
Oh my gosh, I mean, I get so many franchise requests from, I mean, I get them from all over the world. I've gotten them from Tallahassee, from Edmonton, from a person in Alaska that wanted us to put a Tava there. So we get all of that kind of stuff, but then also just where the demand is. We're seeing, you know, Denver would be great, Los Angeles, San Diego, Portland, Dallas, Phoenix. I mean, there's just an infinite number of places that we could go.
So now you have to contain yourself.
Contain our excitement, right? Because that's one of the worst things that as a new business you can do is grow too fast, right? You got to be disciplined about how you're doing it, because ultimately if you're not going to do it with quality, it doesn't matter.
What keeps you awake at night?
Oh, what keeps me awake at night? Lots and lots of things. I think what keeps me most awake at night is, frankly, it's a bit of excitement and a bit of nervousness around, I don't want to drop the ball. I feel like we've done all of the hard work now. We put 3 years into proving the concept. It's become an execution game for us now. And so making sure that we're delivering great product is really important.
You're riding the tiger.
We are, yeah. Riding the tiger and not inside the mouth of the tiger, as the old limerick goes. That's the big piece for us. And then, of course, for me, always, this idea of living and building a business that's consistent with values. A lot of that for me comes down to the way we treat our people. You know, I want to build a company that is a great place to work. There's a lot of discussion right now in the Bay Area around minimum wage and what's appropriate and whether a living wage is reasonable or not. For us, that conversation is just so far in the past. You know, we want to be at the forefront of creating a great place to work, because that's what matters. Those are the people that are going to take care of your guests. You need to treat them right if you expect them to treat your folks right.
What do your parents think of you now?
Oh, they're so proud. They're so proud, but it took them a minute to get there.
Minute or years?
Months. We'll go in between.
Okay.
I get fun calls from them where now of course they're now closet restaurateurs themselves, so they'll walk into a restaurant and they'll call me and they'll say, "Beta, you know, we saw this or we saw that or they didn't do this well," and of course they're much more forgiving and generous now too, because if a restaurant makes a mistake, they sort of have that empathy of, "Oh, I wonder if they're short-staffed today," and so they'll let things slide. But yeah, they're quite pleased with it.
So you created an awareness.
I did, and I've been blessed. I've got my parents are great. My wife is incredibly supportive, and then, you know, I have the good fortune of working on a business with you know, a couple of my best friends, and so to have that support system when you go out and build something, there's nothing like it.
So who cooks at home?
I do. My wife is great, but we save her cooking for special occasions.
My last question: what's your favorite dream restaurant that you'd like to go to?
Oh. My dream restaurant that I would like to go to. Gosh, I still haven't been out to Chez Panisse.
Oh.
That's up there, you know,
Berkeley.
in Berkeley. It's funny.
Alice Waters, Chez Panisse.
I was at the Ferry Building Farmers Market a couple of weeks ago, and literally Alice Waters walked up right next to me. She bought produce from the exact same person.
You recognized her?
I did, yeah. And of course, there was like, oh my gosh, Alice Waters shops here too. So I need to go out and check out her place.
There's a lady from Bombay who works with Alice Waters.
Okay.
I believe she makes the Persian, when they have Nowruz.
Right.
She creates the dinner for them.
Oh my gosh, I'll have to figure out a way to get out when she's doing that. That sounds delightful.
Well, we wish you all the best, and thank you for coming and talking about Tava. And the next time we talk to you, hopefully you've expanded.
Absolutely, and I'll have to bring by some food for you to try out.
Yes, we have to. I haven't tried, even though I pass by Tava almost every week.
Oh gosh, that's a problem. What are you doing tomorrow? You want to come for lunch?
Maybe. We'll take it offline.
Perfect, sounds good.
Thank you so much, Hasnain.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for watching. If you missed any of our shows, you can watch them on our YouTube channel. We'll be back again next week with another show. Until then, goodbye. And as I said, thank you for tuning in.